and say recording in progress. So sorry to grab you out of that space. But welcome everyone on the recording and welcome everyone who's live here today for our second installment in our guidance course. And we were taking the opportunity to have a breath together and to drop in to this moment. It's always so tempting for parts in our mind to be somewhere else. it's, it's often very difficult to actually be present in the moment, right? To be present where you are in the space and in the moment without parts pulling on the past or something that's just happened or thinking about what might happen in a few minutes or a few hours or a few days or a few years. So there's an invitation here in this moment to simply ask that those parts that engage with the past and those parts that might be engaging with the future to relax back a little bit for now. Just for now, if only for a few minutes, if only for a few minutes, if those parts could come forwards, could step out of the past, and those parts could step back out of the future, so that we're coming into this moment, into this present moment and space. And we're gonna breathe into the body and relax with this simple intention, simple request or invitation that those parts that are very engaged in the past or the future step out of that way of thinking just for a moment and come to be fully present with the body and the breath in this moment and this group and what's happening right here. And we're slowing everything down. I don't know what your mind is like, but if it's anything like the vast majority of minds on this planet, it's probably a little bit busy. It is probably very engaged in the world. It's probably very engaged in survival. It's probably very engaged in trying to create a sense of safety for the body. It's probably very engaged in trying to create more comfort. And the mind does this in all manner of different ways. These are the core needs that abide in mind. Just for now, just for this time, just for this space, we're asking these parts to simply allow themselves to be present here, to just put down all of those things they need to be doing. You're safe. You're comfortable in this moment. Nothing more is required. I'm going to say that again. You're safe. You're comfortable. There's comfort. Nothing more is required. Nothing else is needed in this moment. So we're going to keep the breath moving deeply into the body, and we're going to have a little recap on last week. Last week we spoke about really the structure of mind, um, and the way that, we have many parts to mind, many um, individuals within the framework of ourself. And very often, each individual aspect of mind has its own agenda, its own way of being, its own ideas about what's needed, about how to go about life. And sometimes those parts can conflict and we end up in polarity inside. The reason we started talking about this in relation to guidance is because it's very important when we start looking at receiving clear guidance from our soul, from the truth of ourself, that we can begin to learn to identify those voices that might be coming in from within our own mind that have their own agenda, an agenda that is going to be grounded in fear, in lack, and is going to be seeking to protect the system in some way and find safety and comfort and relief. And those parts can get very confused about what is actually needed in the system. And generally speaking, it's in all of these parts that we live most of our lives. So we end up living most of our lives fearfully or from a place of lack or need. And the idea really of getting guidance is to learn to discern that voice within that speaks for love, that speaks with the clarity of soul, that has this broader perspective, this deeper understanding of who we are and what this life is for, the direction that we're going. Because we're not just here to survive. Right? I love this quote from one of my teachers in the Way of Mastery, Yeshua, and he says, who told you you're here to survive? Like, where did you get that idea from? I mean, where did that come from? And it's a radical idea to parts. I mean, it's so radical to parts of the mind. It's like, what? Of course I'm here to survive. That's absolutely the only reason I'm on this planet. And I have to give everything to that. And I will do everything to make this body survive. Of course, the great irony is that we haven't yet, in all of our lifetimes, managed to get a body to actually survive beyond its finite term. And so we come again and try again to get the body to survive until finally we can say, actually, yeah, maybe that's not the goal. maybe that's not what this is all about. Maybe there's something else. And it's that something else that we're wanting to get in touch with. And that's something else from the language that we're talking about in this course, that is guidance. That is this aspect of our being that is in connection with the whole of creation. That is pure spirit, pure energy, pure love, pure light, and pure intelligence that knows exactly what's required. So this is the basic premise of the course, and we explored some of this last week. I wonder, there was some practices to do last week, and really what we were doing was building a foundation. We didn't go anywhere near guidance last week. And the reason for that is because very often we're seeking guidance from a part or parts in mind that are fearful and are wanting reassurance or are wanting to assert their own agenda and control in mind. So they're seeking guidance, but they're also going, I know exactly the guidance I want to receive, and I'm bloody well going to receive it. So they set up this whole dance and play of like, oh yes, what's the guidance? And then they run around the other side and they whisper in that ear, oh yeah, it's this. And then they go, oh, that's exactly what I thought. We play this, get the game of guidance with our parts, and we're not actually listening to our truth at all. So in that respect, last week we didn't go anywhere near guidance. What we went towards was slowing everything down and grounding the mind. So we're gonna practice that practice now for a little while. I'll lead us through it, and we'll just rest into that space. This is about breathing, and the importance of the breath in this is that parts very often operate in what's known as a vagal tone of activation or sympathetic arousal. And that means they're agitated. They're not coming to you from a place of deep rest and relaxation or social engagement. They're coming from a place of feeling like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. So this world is scary and I need something. So this is the tone. This is the energetic tone of parts. And what we're engaged in here through the breath is dropping out of that activation, that sympathetic arousal. And that's a term from the polyvagal theory. And the breath and the vagus nerve are so integrally joined. And in the autonomic system, the vagus nerve via the brain signals the breath that we should have. But this is a cyclical movement because the body feeds back to the brain and the brain then feeds back to the body and around it goes. And a part of the sympathetic arousal is to breathe like this. You're ready for action. It's like fight or flight. It's the chest breathing, it's shallow breathing, it's fast breathing, it's sending the signal to the brain that I am not safe and that I'm got to get ready for action because there's a tiger that's just about to leap around the corner and have a swipe at me or whatever it is that the fantasy is. So just as the brain signals to the body, we can signal through the mind to the brain to control the breath, to drop down, to deepen. And this sends a signal back to the brain that says, hey, you know what? Everything's actually safe. And this then affects our parts and the way that we think, which then affects the brain, which then affects the body, which signals back to the brain that it's safe, which then affects the way that we think. So there's this whole sequence. And we can hack into that sequence very consciously by deepening the breath into the belly, into the lower belly if we can, and slowing the breath down. And you might notice as well that as soon as I do that, my voice drops in tone and I'm speaking more slowly, and there's a relaxation that's present. So this is the movement out of sympathetic arousal and into a more relaxed state of being. So we breathe deeply, we breathe slowly. This is the first core foundation of receiving guidance. Let's just breathe for a few minutes together and relax. And if you can breathe through the nose, if your nose is a clear pathway for breath, then breathe through the nose, because this also helps to relax the system. So breath and then relaxation. So just sending a permission slip, a little note of permission throughout the body that it's safe to relax. There's nothing happening right now that is requiring an activated response. I'm going to say that again. There is nothing happening right now that requires an activated response in the body or the mind. And there are going to be parts in the mind that hate this, right? There will be parts in the mind that hate this, because when the system begins to relax, they start to lose a little bit of control. And that's okay. We can just bring some reassurance to our parts that we are safe, and that we're simply creating a little space in the system to be able to receive some clear guidance that will benefit the whole system. The next step in this simple process to create some space for guidance, that's all we're doing, we're just creating space for guidance, is an old Taoist practice called grounding the mind. And for this, we begin with the focus of our awareness in the head, in the brain, by the third eye and the crown chakras. We're starting with this awareness in the head, and we're holding this very clear intention to sink the energy of awareness down slowly through the body. And as awareness moves down through the body, we're going to gather all of our thoughts and all of our thinking. We're sinking the mind, we're sinking the energy of thoughts and thinking along with awareness down from the head through the neck and into the upper torso, sinking the energy of mind downwards, always downwards here. So again, we're simply making space. We're making space in the body and in the mind. And it's okay if thinking arises, if thoughts arise, if parts come up. It's okay if there's resistance. It's okay if there's displeasure from parts at this, who simply continue to sink the mind down. And we're going to move all the way down through the body, slowly as you like. There's no rush. Moving the awareness, sinking thoughts and thinking all the way down to the root of the body, through the diaphragm and the belly, and into the pelvis, all the way down into the pelvic floor, the genitals and the perineum, the anus, so moving all the way down through the system of the body, grounding the mind. We're going to bring the focus of our attention to a point about 1 inch beneath the body, beneath the perineum. And we're intending for all thought and all thinking to come down to that point, to be met by the earth. This is grounding the mind. Grounding is a very important part of any spiritual, energetic discipline. When we truly connect with the earth energetically and can join the energy we are with the energy of the earth, we can get a deeper sense of safety and a deeper sense of belonging. This is incredibly important to feeling well whilst in a body on earth. We're sinking the mind. The last step in this process, and this is the preparation for guidance. This is a process that this course is using to make the space within which guidance can arrive, with as little influence from parts as possible. That really is the goal, the premise of this. The final step of this process, the fourth step of the preparation for guidance, is to unblend. We're going to step out of the parts of mind that abide in fear and are grounded in need and lack. Where we step out, we unblend and unwind simply by intending to do so. We allow the instruction to express in mind to step out of all parts for now, so as to create space in the system. This is our practice. This practice we'll practice every week. It's written down. If you were to practice this every day, a few times, begin to open up the neural pathways within your own brain to familiarize yourself, to become familiar, to get to know this practice. In time, it can happen reasonably quickly. It's the framework of creating space. We'll remember the breath, breathing deeply into the belly, relaxing the body, grounding the mind, sinking all thinking and all thoughts, stepping out of our parts. This is a space that we can cultivate when we want guidance, when we have a question. Very often, the questions will simply dissolve away as we enter the space of peace, because the questions are arising from a space of discord, and we can welcome those parts into peace, and we can offer to those parts comfort and safety, which is really what every part wants. And our parts end up seeking for comfort through other people and for safety through the material, money and things, which is all perfectly okay, but is very limited in its capacity to actually deliver safety and comfort. And all the while, our parts are seeking for comfort and safety in a multitude of different ways. Our guidance system will be at risk of being compromised by those parts and their agenda for the whole system of self. So I'd love to hear from some of you now in this space, any brave souls that want to break the ice of silence and share. Like what happens for you in this space? You know, what happens for you as we go through this process? Like, is there more spaciousness? Does space open up? Is there more peace? Or do parts become very determined to reassert themselves and take back control of the system and wrestle you back into sympathetic arousal and activation? Like, whatever it is, it's perfectly okay, but it's really good to hear like what's happening so that we can begin to address some of the issues that might come up, that we can get a better understanding of what's happening in the system. And I guarantee if it's happening in your system, it's going to be happening in others, probably just the same. And we can speak to some of that. We're not going to be going into a lot of process in this course. This is not a course about psychotherapy. And this is a course about learning how to navigate our system a little bit better and offering to parts maybe just something of what they might need or want to help them to relax back so that we can have more space for guidance. Does this all make sense? Am I talking nonsense or does it make sense? It makes sense. Good, good, good. We're getting some nods. I appreciate that. Who wants to share? I'm going to drink some tea. Sarah, you're very welcome. Unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I would just say, in breathing, I'm faced. I always get to this point of a friend, in the mind are the thoughts, and I feel it in my breath. It's almost like a butterfly, and it's probably 70% on the inhale, and it comes with the thoughts and the breath, and then I have a choice to breathe through it. And what I find is allowing myself um, just to feel that, whether it be the frantic of the thoughts, but the acceptance of the unknown, like the acceptance of I don't like this feeling, I recognize the feeling, and I'm choosing to breathe through the feeling. And but almost just getting acquainted with it without any need for an outcome
Mm.
is I'm finding so much peace in that. Almost for me, like you can't process and deal with something unless you know it well, right? And so I feel like I'm in a process of like in the past, the things that I might would feel passionately or intently, the fight or flight, uh, and now it's like a nice to meet
Mm.
you, and how are we going to navigate this together? Um, Although it's all it's me, but the two of me. How am I going to navigate this? Uh, without denial, without rejection of myself, without ignoring myself.
Mm.
And once I find that moment, like, and it happens so fast within that breath. I mean, because it is within that breath, I feel the flutter, I have the thoughts and the choice to breathe through it. Um, I land in peace. I land in love. I land in comfort. And so
Mm.
that's definitely helping me. And I watched from last week in the visual. I don't quite remember what you said, but it was something about put your thoughts in the bag and throw it in the lake. Let it sink. And so I've thought of that. I'm very visual, and those help me immensely. And
Right.
so that was good.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. It's such wisdom in your share about the way that we can meet these parts, which in a sense are our creations.
Yes,
They're not who we are because we are soul. We are this pure light and love. But these are our creations that we've created so that we could experience fear and guilt and shame and all of these energies of the world. The wisdom of you just coming into loving, kind relationship with your parts instead of recoil, reaction, fight or flight. I mean, that's just beautiful. And the way you describe the presence of being with, instead of pushing away or trying to deny. Um, that's fantastic. That's really fantastic and feels, I can feel the healing of that, you
I
know?
do.
Yeah, yeah,
I do. It's beautiful, and
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
That's really lovely. And yeah, that visualization is from the Taoist practice. And you take your thoughts and you tie them in a sack, and that sack has a chain on the bottom with like a big weight, like a
Yes.
100 kilo weight, and it sinks down through the root and into the earth and just gets pulled all the way down. And then the thoughts go with it. It's like it's a clearing of the mind. Um, and I think that as well, it's like there is no right or wrong. It's like whatever works for you, as well. And I love the idea of throwing it in a lake as well. I think that's great, like letting it go. So yeah, no, thank you for that share, Sarah. I really enjoyed hearing your experience and this beautiful connection of relating in compassion with your parts, which I think is absolutely fundamental, to the journey of healing. And of course, that's going to open up space for more self energy, for more of who we are. And that's where the guidance is. That's where we can actually receive the truth of ourself, you know. So that's great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. Would anyone else like to share their experience?
I'll give it a try if it's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Camille.
Thank you. Is so for me it's very similar to what Sarah was sharing. Mm, and I recognize the habit, like the for myself, like the habit of busyness and the habit of these parts of receiving my attention and my energy, and and in the moment that is subtracted from them, then it's a bit of a revolt, like being so habituated to movement, to chatter, to activity, and all of the things that I think I'm as soon as I wake up, I tend to go into that space immediately, and maybe, the first thing in the morning, have some coffee or some stimulants and things like that support the activity of the mind, and the
Mm.
chatter in a way. But at the same time, there is a strong desire to move into stillness and to descend. For myself, it's like a descending into like leaving parts behind and dropping into grounding, and without thinking about guidance too much, but just the experience of more stillness. Then I kind of tie it in with a desire in my heart and in my soul to step away from the habituated state of busyness, and more into the state of stillness. And definitely the questions start to drop down, and the impulse of my experience is to remain in the stillness, and that's pretty much the reward in itself, right? Like, in a way, being able to release, and a bit in a way transcend the the initial impulses of of mind chatter, and more try to reconcile, I think, in a way, with a part, or whatever that might be, that is like a deeper part of the beingness that wants to take a step in a more profound direction, and learn how to get there more effectively, because there's definitely a whole process for me of um, of being open, and accepting, and as well, just guiding the parts to stillness, and I felt that at a small point I needed more breath, like not less, but I felt a little bit of the need to, I don't know, oxygenate. I don't know if that's a word, the body. So I did that for a few seconds. And yeah, it's like recognizing this other thread that is looking for stillness and looking for peace.
Mm.
That's what I felt. Thank you.
Mm. Thanks, Camille. I love that you really took me on a journey through the whole process, of well, really like waking up in the morning, like being like in that busyness, that, you know, the habitual movement of our parts to, you know, to keep playing the game, you know, of survival, comfort, safety, you know, getting from the world, giving into the world, like that whole dynamic. Um, and then yeah, just remembering to drop in. What I love about this course that I'm learning, because I'm, you know, this is the first time I've done this course, and it's always a massive learning curve anyway. But it came up in the last call as well, that the desire for guidance was really moving towards a desire for truth and life, for getting in touch with what you're talking about, Camille, which is this deeper essence of our beingness. And then allowing that to express, allowing ourselves to become that, to express, like really re-identifying. So it's always wonderful for me, because we can talk about guidance, or we could talk about forgiveness, or we could talk about grounding, or it doesn't, you know, it's like this is just the form, but the content is always the same. You can't get away from the fact that we're on this journey into the remembrance of who we truly are, and that everything always takes us to that. And in this context, the desire for guidance is a desire for truth. It's a desire to get in touch with that aspect of ourself that is already connected with the whole and has that truth available right now, that we don't need to go anything for it. And in fact, you know, that there is this potential for immediate satiation of all desire, you know, through simply connecting with the light or the love of creation that is the depth of our own being now. That there's nowhere to go. It reminds me of Bridget's amazing message that she left after last week's call. Where you spoke about just finding that space within where it's already present, you know, where love is already present, that there's nowhere to go. So yeah, on one hand, I always feel a bit of a fraud when I'm doing this course, because it's like, yeah, I'm teaching guidance, yeah, but we're not really. It's like we're coming to learn to connect with the truth of ourselves. And whatever the form might look like of that, the content is it's always the same. It's always the same, and it's beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. So thank you, Camille, for your share. I really felt that arc of movement, you know, through the busyness of mind. And I think that's, you know, that for me, this is the focus, right, of what I want to convey in this space is this simple process or practice. And I also want to say, it's like, just because this is what we're doing here doesn't mean that this is what's the best for you, right? It's like I'm so acutely aware that every journey is unique, you know, and in a sense, the idea of guidance is to get in touch with the uniqueness of your own journey, you know, because I don't know what you need or what your answers are or what process or practice is going to work best for you in your system of mind. But what I would love to do is to get us to start exploring ourselves within our own system, and getting to learning to navigate and get to know our own system, so that we can find out and discern ourselves what the best practice is. I know what it is for me. I know what my best practice and process is. I know how to connect with myself in that way, and I can share some of that with you. But I'm also aware that, like, it's an individual, unique expression of love. So really, this is about an invitation to get to know the mind, the system of mind better, so that, well, you know, together we can learn how to navigate ourselves individually, in a better way. So yeah, just because it's coming from here doesn't mean it's right or true for you, but it can help point. That's the best I can do, I think. Does anyone else want to share while we're here? I'd say just yeah, Aspen. Thank you, Aspen. Let's hear from Aspen. That'd be great. Hang on, Aspen. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
There we go.
Yay.
Sometimes I can't see very good. My phone's so small. I'm doing this from my phone. I'm trying to use my fingers on these little buttons. I just wanted to say that the simplicity part, when you were just speaking, really hit me. And also this part about the truth that is always there, that we always have, that we can always connect to. And one of the things I was noticing, because I did this a lot this week and was really being conscious of what was going on. And I found myself really getting mad at myself because I could be in this moment where I could release and let this light flow and feel this love and go into this place of simplicity and beauty. And then all these other little selves are just eating at me, wanting to get back in. And, like I can stay there for a little while and then all this other crap just bombards me. And it's like, and then I go through this thing where I'm like, well, you made this all up. You created this whole situation. So how are you going to uncreate it? And it's just, I just keep spinning around with it. But I am able to come back into the simplicity and into the truth and into the breath. But man, I have to just like constantly catch myself. I've been really, it's made me very aware of what I do on a daily basis. And it almost scares me a little bit, It's pretty crazy. The process, it's very interesting, but slowing down the breath, simplifying and knowing that the truth is always there, which it is, that's what I'm really trying to be more aware of. But yeah, that all these selves that just really want to twist me up are just so vicious. It's like, wow, it's tough sometimes to hold it together.
Yeah, I totally understand this. And I know how vicious our parts can be sometimes, especially when they're feeling threatened, and slowing everything down and taking deep breath can feel like a threat to parts. And so that can be very activating for them in terms of they're wanting to try and take back control of the system, because within their world, and they can't see anything else, within their world, it's only them that know how to keep you safe. Right? That's it. And every part has its own myopic perspective. These are worlds, right? Every part is like a world, and it might have some other parts around it, but it's a whole world. And within that worldview, that part is saying, okay, I have this information. It's a fragment of the whole, and it's probably really bad news, right? It's like, I've got this information that when you were 3, this terrible thing happened and someone shouted at you and the bottom fell out of your world. Or this one might say, yeah, there was a life like 3 lifetimes ago when, you got burnt at the stake for opening your mouth and saying something, and we can't allow that to happen because it was such a traumatic experience. So that's all they see. That's it. That's their entire world. And when they feel threatened that they're going to lose control of the system, this might happen again. It might happen again, and it might happen tomorrow. And if it does, the whole system is completely screwed. So this is where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And they will go to great lengths. Great lengths. I have parts that are just not so much now, thank God, but have been so determined to commit suicide. I mean, just so determined, and have just like, and the amount of nights I've been in bed and just had parts like wanting to delete me from creation, like to like God, like please God, please, please, please delete me from creation. I can't do this. I'm not capable. I can't function. I'm not good enough. You know, they will try everything because they're trying to ward off what they're terrified of happening again, you know, which is essentially public humiliation, extreme physical pain, and the deepest sense of shame and guilt ever recurring again, or whatever it is in the system. So this is why they're so determined and so passionate and so vicious, because they're desperate to stop these things happening again. And what they need essentially, and I said we're not going to go too deeply into the therapeutic side of things in this course, but essentially what they need, what they lack, right, is safety, you know, and comfort. This is what they need. This is what they lack. And they're desperate for that. There is no part in the system that, if it feels safe, attacks the system. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. There is no part that, when it feels safe, will want to attack the system. And safety we can bring. We can bring through our connection with love. Sarah wants to come in. Aspen, I'm just going to let Sarah come in here for a moment. Hey.
I do. I just have something I wanted to add. For me in this process, once I learned, I just felt like I've been breathing wrong. I breathe wrong from the minute I wake up. You know, my awareness to my breath became so real, and so also in my mind lives all the stirs and the unknown. But now I have this information and this knowledge of breath. And what I found is helping me so much. In the morning, my first breath, uh, may it be a conscious breath. And I take about 5 minutes of, not diving too deep into it, but now that I know the results of it, and that brings just peace and joy and all the goodness, whether I get just to the top step or, whether I go 2 hours in it. But what I was going to say is, so when my mind, and I'm definitely have been an overthinker and I can go there, but now I just know that when I get in that stir and I get in that fear and I get in that flight, and whether I'm in the car, wherever I am, I'm able to breathe. And if it's just 5 breaths, if it's just 10, or maybe it's more, I have just found a reverse, a transition from when I used to, my body would tell my brain what to do. My body in response of the day and then the mind runs. And it's a reverse for me now. When the mind runs, I have the same knowledge in there to say, oh, I know what to do. And for me personally, I don't have to take the I know what to do too far, because I can be a doer. And so, but now I just do the one thing anyway, and that has given me throughout my day. I don't know how to express it, but I may stop and breathe 5 or 10 times, maybe 5 or just 10 breaths, but it it changes it. It gets it off track. It's better. It's better.
That's awesome.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. It's I'm
Thank you,
gaining
Sarah.
control without seeking control. If that makes sense. I feel
It does make sense. It does make sense. And in a way, that's it's reestablishing a form of leadership in the system. And I think that's really, really helpful, in order to be able to then facilitate right? The relationship, the connection that we have with these different parts. I
It
think that
does feel like you sometimes, I do feel like I'm telling the old parts of me or the parts that I've come to acknowledge that were no longer serving me well. Hi, there you are. Bye. We've had our time. But it's very different. It's a different transition for me.
yeah, it's very different from fighting, you know. I had somebody who I was in a one-to-one session with, and they looked within, and after some time of not seeing very much, they had this epiphany and were like, "Oh my God, it's like a prison riot in here," you know, and it made a lot of sense, you know. I'm super happy, Sarah, that the breath is working in this way for you, and that you are remembering to bring breath into your day and your system in this way. And I think that it is fundamental to healing. I think, and I just want to head back to Aspen as well. I think that there's something that I love to engage in Aspen, which is a daily practice for me, and is becoming more and more and more uh, rewarding, is to go through this process of breath, sinking the mind, relaxing, connecting with the earth, and then asking the energy of the earth, asking the energy of this amazing mother that we are connected with, to bring comfort and to bring safety into my mind, and to engage directly with my parts. And I think that that's, for me anyway, it's a hugely beneficial thing to do. Like, I can bring safety to my parts. I can bring a sense of comfort to my parts, but I also want that energy to come from the earth as well. I'm kind of hatching something in my being at the moment where there's something truly healing when we can bring together the soul's love with the mother's love of the earth and the father's light into one embrace of the part. And it's something that is, for me, incredibly alchemical. It's not easy to do, but there's something there that's birthing through me in my process and practice. And I want to offer that to you. I don't know how that lands.
It's great. And I was listening to Sarah, and I actually do this a lot. I do a lot of breath work. I've been doing it for a long time, and
Yeah.
I know what it does. I know the results, and I prefer that over the other. I'm just struggling right now because there's so much going on, and it's really a challenge, to go through this ring of fear and whatever all the stuff is that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I do know how to ground. I just have a hard time doing it sometimes. And uh, I love go out and just do a meditation I go out into the desert and just do the meditation out there. I mean, I do all these things, but the thing I've really been noticing this week is how busy my mind is. I've been really looking at it and really trying to go back into that simplicity of just being in the truth and feeling, knowing that the truth is that we're always connected to the light. And I've been trying to go back into that more, and I'm able to do that. But man, I think just the knowledge of how these parts are working has just been kind of messing with me, because I got a lot of them. they're real little shits. So anyways, thank you. I appreciate
I
everything.
hear
Thanks for
that,
doing
Aspen.
that.
I hear that. And
It's
I
been
know
it's been
you,
some rough times lately, but I'll get through it.
I
I
get
know
it.
the truth. I know the truth. I know that I can't be any place but where I'm supposed to be right now in this moment. And
Yeah.
I know that's in God's light and love. And I just have to keep breathing that through me and knowing that I'm connected. So that's what I'm doing,
Well,
bit by bit.
I know that you have all the tools and
Just got
the
to use them.
ability, and And I also know that, you know, it's a very difficult time right now. So it's understandable, right? That your parts would be afraid and very active because they're so afraid.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? It's understandable that all of these parts would be so active. And that can be a good thing to bring to them, right?
Thank
That
you.
it's understandable. You know, with their perspective, it makes perfect sense. But there may be more to the picture than what they see. You know?
Thank you.
Thanks, Aspen. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sarah. All right, let's take a deep breath. I'm going to check my time. We're going to take a break for 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we're going to go into breakout rooms in pairs. And we're going to just go through the process of breath. And then we're going to drop a question requesting guidance for something into the system of mind. You can ask whatever question you want. But really, at the moment, we're interested in what happens in the system when we introduce this. What happens in the system? And so the invitation is to become very aware of, oh yeah, you know, when I move towards guidance, like I can feel this contraction in my back. It's like, you know, and then my part comes along and says, yeah, I know the answer to this, or there's an answer immediately that comes with this feeling of nausea. I don't know, like whatever it is for you, you know. So we're just going to explore a little bit because, as I said last week, you know, guidance is not it's not something that we're going to get right. You know, it's something that we can learn to refine and bring discernment to. But generally, there are going to be parts that come along and want to. So we have to go on this journey. There's a journey of learning our own system, and guidance can teach us this very effectively. And then there's always that moment when guidance comes that just sings through the whole system. And it's like, oh, there's truth. I feel it. So we're going to look at that after our break. So we're going to come back at 17 minutes past, whatever hour you're in. All right. So in the chat box, you should have just a little reminder of the creating space quartet of processes. Can everyone access that? Can everyone see their chat box?
I don't see one.
Okay. Let me
Oh, yes.
see. You got
Yes,
it?
I did. You're chatting as a guest. And okay, yes, I see it.
Yeah, good. Aspen, maybe go on your device to are you on an iPad?
I can see it now.
You can, yeah. Great. Super good.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go into breakout rooms, and the invitation is to just drop in together to the meditation that we're learning, the breath, relaxation. If one person goes first, then the other person can prompt a little bit as you go through the breath, relaxation, grounding the mind, and unblending. So this is our process for creating space. And then in that space, and whatever that is for you, even if it's a manic space of utter craziness, that's fine. We're going to drop a question in. And that question is completely up to you, like whatever it is. And it's not actually the most relevant thing. It's good if the question's a little bit juicy. because we're going to be bringing awareness to what happens in the system. So this isn't really about listening for an answer. Instead, we're going to bring awareness to what happens in the system of mind when we move towards receiving guidance, and about that specific question. And the reason we're going to do this is because we want to get the hang of understanding some of the parts that might come forwards and want to answer the question or take us away from it. So that's what we're up to. That's what we're up to there. Okay. Right, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. Right, just got to mess about with something. Okay, I think we're good to go. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes each. Okay, so, keep an eye on the time if you can. I'll give like a 1-minute warning before we close the rooms down. So there's 5 minutes really to settle into the system, settle into that place of peace again. Like it might sound a little bit boring. It's like, oh, we've done this already. But the whole point of this, in a way, is to learn that the process is actually more important than the guidance, and the process of slowing everything down, coming into that spaciousness before we ask the question is absolutely vital, because all too often the mind wants to get on with it. So just notice in this process, if you have something in your mind that just wants to get on with it, and you can ask that part to kindly step back for now as we take time to essentially bypass that part. All right, see you in a minute. Welcome back, everyone, from your breakout rooms. And I obviously have absolutely no idea what's been going on in there. So I'd love some feedback or some, like, I wonder what arose for you in that process, like how it was, what happened in your system when you were looking for guidance. Anyone want to share? I know it's not the biggest group. So Bridget, yay.
Well, I think it's really interesting in terms of looking at parts up and getting to know parts better. Because in the meditation that we did outside of the breakout room, when you said nothing is required, I could really feel this part in me, the part that's sort of so much obligated to what I think other people require of me. So when you said, "Oh, nothing is required," I could really feel this big drop. Like, oh, that's nice. But it was interesting that then going into the breakout rooms, it was like suddenly, social interaction again. There's another person there that requires something of me, and immediately that old part kind of starts to feel unsafe. And it was just interesting seeing that whole thing about obligation and other people, and the part that thinks the way to stay safe is to placate and appease and all that kind of stuff. So that was really, really clear through the whole process, really. So that was really helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. That's a great part to see, isn't it? I mean, that really is. I want to take a moment as well to reaffirm that we're not our parts. You know, that part that wants to appease and wants to please in order to secure safety in that dynamic, you know, which is completely understandable, right? From the perspective of whatever that part has been through. And this is its strategy. Like, this is how it's going to get safety, you know, so it's really understandable. And that part is simply a construct in your mind, and it's not who you are.
No. Oh, yeah. And I suppose that's the thing, how identified I am with it, really.
Yeah,
It's very powerful. You know,
absolutely.
uh,
Yeah. Yes, it's, you know, you're merged and blended, right? Which is perfectly okay. It's absolutely okay. And you don't have to be, right?
yeah.
And,
No.
and ironically, the part can never know safety from you while you're blended with it.
Yeah.
And the only place it can ever find true safety is with you.
Right. Mm.
But all the time you're blended with it, you are experiencing the need for safety as opposed to being the provider of safety, the one who is safe.
Wow. Oh, please, can you just say that again?
Yeah, of course. Whilst you're merged with this part, when you're blended with this part, you experience only its need for safety. You experience that as if that's who you are.
Mm.
And you can't be the one that provides that safety whilst you're blended and merged. And the only place in the whole of creation that that part can truly feel safe is with you.
Okay.
There has to be that movement away, that unblending, so that you can be the presence of safety and love that you are, that
Mm.
is you, that is the truth of who you are. Then you can bring that to that one.
Oh, thank you. That really, yeah, that really clarifies things, because I think, when you've been sort of talking about stepping back, and almost it like scrambles my mind a little bit, because I'm so identified that I don't know what I'm stepping back from. So
I get
yeah,
that. It makes so much sense. I really understand that. If the blending is like that, you think, like, how can I stand back from myself?
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Where am I stepping back from?
Oh,
But you're stepping out of a paradigm. You're stepping out of a
mm,
world.
yeah,
You're stepping out of the world that part knows. Not to abandon it, not to reject it, not to dismiss it, not to judge it, but to be the presence of love, that one that can embrace it.
mm,
And that's where the healing comes from.
wow, gosh, yeah, thank you. Whew. Mm,
Because God hasn't made you as a being who needs to appease others in order to feel safe.
mm, well, yeah.
That's just a wonderful thing that you've created in mind in order to play in the dream. And you can play with this as well. You can say, I'm gonna unblend from this part. Like, I love this part. It's served me so well for so long, right? But I'm gonna step out of it for 2 seconds. And then I'm just gonna jump right back in.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So yeah, and I suppose I can just, even if I can't really comprehend what the stepping back will be like, I can just ask and say, and just see what.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what it means. I have
Yeah.
no idea what it means. I have no idea, right? I just know that if I offered these thoughts into the system of my mind, sometimes it creates an effect.
Yeah.
And I'll bear witness to that. I'll go like, oh, there's an effect. It's like I brought that thought in, it's had an effect. Just like the thoughts of the need to appease others creates an effect in the mind, right? Thought generates effect. And there's a whole sequence of relationship between effect and thought, because it's a feedback loop. But you might find that there's an effect that feels all right, maybe. And then that's a whole positive feedback loop, right? Of like when I drop the thought in that it's safe for me to have a moment unblended from this beautiful part that's kept me safe for so long, but yet has such a tiny perspective on what life is that it doesn't realize that I just don't need that anymore.
Oh, thank you.
It's about creating space,
Oh.
just the tiniest bit of space. And in that space, that's where we are. That's where you truly are. That's where the truth of you is.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Bridge. That might be a nice practice this week. Gently does it. Just go, we're not trying to crowbar. I'm not trying to crowbar you off your part, It's not, gently does it. Did you manage to drop a question into the space, or did you ask a question for guidance?
No, it was just feeling the terror.
Okay.
It's helpful.
Who were you paired with out of interest? Or you were with Sarah, weren't you?
Yeah, with Sarah.
Yes. And I probably unsettled you because I came in your room and then I left as well. So
no worries.
I get it. I get it. Thanks, Bridge. It's a great share. I really appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty. And yeah, this could be beautiful, just creating a little bit of space. That's all we're doing here, really, is we're creating space. In terms of the course, we're creating space to receive guidance, but that space is created because it allows us to discover and experience ourselves as self with a capital S, as the love that we are. That space is everything.
Oh, okay.
Would anyone else like to share? Camille.
There we go. Yeah, sure. So, yeah, let me just say that was amazing what was just discussed with Brigitte and Parts, and how to be the security for the part. I had never looked at myself in that way, and that really, really landed for me. So yeah, that was a bit flabbergasted with that way to answer these moments, because I definitely understand the merging and the blending, and how we are completely become whatever it is the part is manifesting in the way of fear or anger or anxiety or whatever it is. So that really hit the spot. Well, I had a very peaceful and nice gathering with Aspen, and we actually shared a little bit of our experience. So for me, I actually did manage to answer to ask the question, and I've actually been practicing this for some time now. So for me, it was a really nice opportunity to slow. Like, I felt like those YouTube videos when you go slow motion, like you see the everything in super slow motion. I wanted to go into that space of really looking at what were my reactions to the questions, like you requested, and was sort of oriented towards that. And I could definitely see that parts are in a way attached to answers. So we might have conflicting parts. Some want the answer to be positive. Some might want the answer not to be, not move forward or move forward. And for me, just by way of sharing something that happens for me and that I learned in my empirical spiritual endeavors, is that somehow, if my mind focuses on a part of my body, I can move into a space of neutrality. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share. This might be weird, but I focus on my spine, and when my attention is placed in my spine, I feel that I have, in a way, moved into a neutral space internally. And this facilitates what I feel is a more direct connection. And this is all like we're all learning here. I mean, I don't know what's actually happening in any way, but I feel when I move into this neutral space, the way I can perceive an answer, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, is that it comes from a place that is beyond the parts. I don't know how else to put it. And I can understand and recognize the flavor of truth in the answer. As with parts, the answers always have a little bit of anxiety inside. I mean, like, being honest and totally, like, when a part takes over and wants to answer the question and wants to pull towards maybe a desire that it might have. This is all very new to me as well. I'm just learning about parts. So there is still a little bit of not that profound sort of peace or truth. I think is so tied into peace. So I felt that there was like a little itching in the system when the question was asked, and there were like little itches wanted to be scratched, like little parts like going, oh wait, let's do it this way or whatever. So for me, it's important because I tend to get really caught up in the answer. I want to know the answer, like you said before, like really most of the time I just want to get on with it and try to obtain what it is that I want to know or seek into, and that's a whole other thing as well, like where the questions come from, but not keeping it a little bit more simple. I felt I needed in a very, like, in my, by way of getting to the core of the connection. I feel that this exercise really tries to distinguish and see.
Camillo, has everyone else lost Camillo? I can't hear him. Has everyone else lost him as well? Yeah, okay, that's bad that we've lost Camillo. It's great that we still all have each other and it's not my internet that's gone down. So I'm gonna trust that Camillo will be back with us in a minute. And I wanna reflect a little bit. There's some really good points in what Camillo is sharing there. I love this word neutrality, coming into neutrality, and what he's pointing to about the agenda of parts, essentially, which is, you know, this need for a certain outcome, this attachment to an answer being a certain way. And this is so profoundly important in terms of receiving guidance and coming into clarity. This movement of parts that already know the answer they want and need, and that they will fight for. Right? They will do everything they can to try to usurp the sanctity of the system of self so that they get the outcome they want. The difficulty with that is that parts have such a limited perspective. And generally, it's far more valuable to receive guidance from a place within that has a greater perspective, that can see more, that can see the whole picture. You know, we can all understand why that would be of benefit, why that's of more value than listening to a part that's holding on to a very small perspective of the whole. But of course, those parts are absolutely convinced that they know the whole and that they know what's right. And this is where we get into the need for discernment. And that's really what this process and practice is about, is beginning to unearth and notice in the system what these parts are up to when we move towards guidance, and how that might feel in the system, how it feels in the body. Like, what do these parts express? What do they hold? And what do they feel like? The feeling nature of it is really important, because it's essentially only through the feeling nature that we're going to be able to learn to discern where our guidance is coming from truly within our system. And the only way we're going to learn that is by practicing and getting to know our parts, because I can't tell you what your system feels like when it's in receipt of truth. I can point towards an experience that I might have and try to explain it in words around a feeling of expansiveness, or of a ringing truth, like this, like a clear bell, like a clear note of truth that resounds and reverberates through the whole system, that is just known in mind, and how that can feel subtly off when it's not coming from the place of truth, that parts can't help but give themselves away by the resonance, the frequency of their energetic, the content that is just beneath the surface of the thought that comes into mind, or the words that come into mind, that beneath the surface of everything is this energetic tone, this signature. And that signature is what gives away our parts, because some parts are really, really good at trying to pretend to be the self with a capital S. Some of them are extremely good at mimicking Christ, love, truth, and they know this to be a very effective and successful method of having their will played out as opposed to thy will played out. And of course, this is all perfectly innocent. It's all perfectly neutral. It's all okay. Right? But it requires us to become aware, more and more and more aware of the subtle notes, of the subtlest of the subtle in mind, and the way that the expressions of fear can try to manipulate us at times so that these parts can have their worldview played out and that guidance usurped. So that's not to create fear in the system, because it is perfectly innocent. It is all perfectly neutral. And we all at times end up receiving guidance from parts and thinking it's something else. And that's really okay. It's going to happen. But in the happening of that, there's the opportunity to get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer about these, just the subtle notes. It's a bit like becoming like a sommelier, you know, where somebody is spending their time with fine wines, you know, and they can swirl the wine in the glass and get their nose in there, and they can go, oh yeah, this is a Saint-Emilion Burgundy from 1984, you know, and it's like, how the hell do they know that? Right? How could they possibly know, right? Just by the smell of this wine, where it's come from and the year, you know, but this is because they have dedicated themselves to the subtlest of the subtle and to the power of discernment in mind, until they just know what they're smelling, what they're tasting. They just know, because they've practiced so much and they understand these subtleties that for most of us would be completely lost on us. It's like, oh yeah, this is wine. It's like, oh, this is wine too. It's like, oh, there's another wine over there. But we can become the master of our own system. We can learn to get to know our system of mind and these subtle frequencies of energy so clearly that, and in a way that no one else can, by the way, no one else can get to know your system like this. This is purely an inside job. And no one else can come in and start telling you what your system is and what it's not. We can become the connoisseur, if you like, of the vibrational qualities that run through our own minds. And in doing so, we can learn to say yes, and we can learn to say no, and we can learn how to bring love, compassion, safety, security, and comfort to all of these parts when they arise, opening space, unblending from them, and giving ourselves the opportunity to come into and identify with and be present in the purest of frequencies, and to act and move from that purity, that rarefied field of energy that is the truth of who you are. So this is a part of the beauty of guidance, is that we can come to truly navigate through the murky waters and into the crystal clear spring that is the source of all waters in the mind. And how do we get there? Breath, relaxation, sinking and grounding the mind, unblending, noticing, bringing awareness in innocence to what's happening in the system, and having that intention to be with and come from love. Sarah, keep it short. All right, thank you. Here we go. I can unmute you there. We have one more share before we go today.
I just wanted to share that during the breathing with Bridget, that visually I just see a staircase, and often our big thing is at the top, the question or the desire to know, but the 7,000 steps to get there are the breaths. And I find for me, just in this breath, the first step is a small breath, and there's dust, and I stand on it, and I allow myself to be in the dust and the blending, just everything you were saying, everything you were saying. But my process is just trusting in each little step now, instead of using a force that I have in my life to get there and plow through it and get to the top or the answer or the goal. I'm just now in a place of trust. And I know that it's there. I'm aware of it. I'm aware of that I'd like to know answers, but the process has become such a beautiful trusting that there's no obsession anymore. It's like I just don't have this despair, like I need my answer. I'm okay. I'm okay with these 7,000 steps, and they're beautiful.
That's lovely. Really lovely. Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. It's very helpful, I think, and inspiring to remember that, that it is the process, and that there's joy in the process. There can be joy in the process, but of course there can also be parts that deny that vehemently and want to prevent joy because it feels like a threat to them in this system. So it can be so beautiful to be with that. And I really acknowledge that there can be parts as well that reject the simplicity of enjoying the process and the journey because they're afraid. Yeah. That is us for week 2 of our guidance course. It's been a real joy to journey with you all this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. There is an invitation to continue the practice of breath, relaxation, grounding the mind, and unblending, and also dropping the question in to the space that we may have made or not, and witnessing and noticing what happens in the system, and just getting to know. Really, this is the process of getting to know what happens in mind when we move towards receiving guidance and creating space, and bringing love and safety and comfort to every part, to every aspect of our own mind, in reassurance and trust. And if the parts feel too strong sometimes and they take over the system, and we're at the mercy of our own mind, and we're a victim of our own thinking, that's okay. It's okay. That happens to us all sometimes. And we can simply be there and be the victim and experience the pain of it and the fear and all of it together until we move again towards the simplicity of spaciousness and breath and the intention to love. All right. Well, God bless everyone. Many thanks. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to and say goodbye, and then we'll close down the room for this week.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.